Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at a couple of new Illustrator CS5 features. Now these aren't the main headline features that got all the buzz when we launched CS5, but they're useful nonetheless, especially if you're using Illustrator to prepare anything for the web. So for example, I have a masthead here. And in Illustrator, it looks extremely sharp, it looks very clean, very vector-like, and that's what Illustrator's great at. However, if I wanted to put this out on the web, you may have noticed sometimes when you take something from Illustrator that looked very sharp on the screen in Illustrator, and then you make a web graphic out of it, say a PNG or a JPEG file, a PNG file, it doesn't look as sharp and as crisp as it did when it was in Illustrator. And there's a reason for that actually gets taken care of in CS5. So let's take a look. If I look at this graphic, everything looks great. Looks sharp, looks clean. It's typed, it's magnified, but looks pretty good. But now if I go up to my View menu, there is something called Pixel Preview. And when I go to Pixel Preview and turn that on, what it will do is show me what my Illustrator artwork would look like if it were on a pixel-based format or document, like a PNG file or a JPEG or something to that effect. So the minute I turn on Pixel Preview, this is what happens. It gets soft around the edges. And this softness around the edges is something referred to as anti-aliasing. And that is when something doesn't quite line up exactly pixel for pixel, what it does is it kind of cuts it in half. It puts some of it on one side and some of it on the other side, and that's where the softness comes in. Well, luckily, there is a way around this now, and we're going to do it. We're going to show how to do it after the fact, which in this case, this graphic was created, let's say, in a previous version of Illustrator, and therefore we need to activate it for this particular graphic. Then I'll show you how to make sure it happens from here on out for any new things you do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to our Window menu, and we're going to come down to the Transform panel. So we'll bring up the Transform panel, we'll move it over so we can see it. And right here is a new option on the Transform panel called Align to Pixel Grid. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to take the selected object and shift it so that it lines up with the pixel grid. Now, of course, depending on the graphic, you can't shift it in all four directions without stretching it or scaling it. So it's going to do the best that it can based on the graphic that's there. But just by shifting it, things got a lot sharper. So we'll turn it off. Things are soft around the edges. We'll turn it on. Things are a lot sharper around the edges. And again, it's not going to do every edge perfectly because, in some cases it just can't. But it looks a lot better than it did without the pixel grid. So now you're saying, do I have to go in and do that every single time I do something in Illustrator? And the answer is no. When you go up to your new document, and of course, for a while now, we've had the ability to create a document based on a profile. One of those profiles is web. So when you do web, and if we go to the advanced options, you'll notice that your new documents, if you choose web, will automatically align any new objects you create to the pixel grid. So as long as you're starting with a web document, it will do it for you automatically as you create every object on the page. However, if you maybe started out as a print document that you want to take to web and you just want to kind of make sure everything's aligned up, just select all, go to the Transform panel, and then click the Align to Pixel Grid, and you're all set. Okay, so I could end here, and this would be a very short episode, but I thought I'd show you one more thing that's kind of new to Illustrator CS5. So we're going to cancel out of this new document. We'll put the Transform panel away, and we'll switch over to a different tab of our documents here. We have a different document that's open, and this particular document has multiple artboards. Now, the artboard feature came out in CS4, and it's kind of cool. You can grab the artboard tool, you can make new artboards, you can resize the ones that are here, you can move them around, and again, that's all great, and that was in CS4. However, in CS5, we've enhanced one of the things that people wanted us to do was make it so you could rearrange your artboards better without having to do it manually. So for example, if I go up to my Window menu, there is now a new Artboards panel. So I'll bring that panel up. Here, I'll just tear it off so you can see it better. And in that panel, by the way, another new feature is we've given you the ability to name your artboards. So when I click on an artboard and select it here, actually I'm selecting it in the panel. Let's go ahead and actually grab the artboard tool, and now we've got it. Okay, so it's basically selecting this one that's artboard 1. If I wanted to name that artboard something different, like my, we'll call it the Terry artboard. Now I just type in the name of the artboard and that artboard will appear here. And you also notice that in the artboard panel, you now have the ability to rearrange the artboards in the order that you want them in. So for example, if I select the design page and I wanted that one to be first, I can just hit my up arrow to move it above and make it the first one. And you're saying, Terry, nothing happened. The design panel is still where it is. The design artboard hasn't moved. Well, you'll notice that in the upper left corner of each artboard, there is a number. So it is, in fact, the first artboard. However, it didn't change position because we haven't told it to yet. So this is number 1, Terry is number 2, guide page is number 3, feature page number 4, and then food page is number 5. And they're in the manual order that they were created in. They're really not paying attention to what I've done here in the artboards panel just yet. But if I go to the artboard panel flyout menu, then I have the ability to rearrange artboards. In other words, take the work I've done in the artboards panel and apply it to the artboards that are on the page. So I can specify the layout that I want, columns are horizontal or vertical, so I want vertical, and I want these to be 20 points in spacing, which will do the math for me. So now, because I have move artwork with artboard, of course it'll move the art as well, and I can't imagine too many times where you wouldn't want that checked. That's why it's checked by default. But now if I click OK, it will in fact rearrange the artboards in the order that I specified in the artboard panel, as well as the layouts will change to a single column as I specified as well. So if you are working with multiple artboards / pages, we call them artboards, but some people refer to this as multiple pages in Illustrator, you now have the ability to quickly and easily rearrange them and name them so they make sense to you, just like naming your layers. So that's it for this episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast. A couple of quick things on using Illustrator, and I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.